Cool. If I can get everybody's attention, sorry about this. I've lost control completely. So I wish I could spin my computer around to show you the folks we have in the room, but I'm so afraid that I will lose connection here, which is the norm with my computer. So I'm not going to do that, but we're joined by a good group here in the room, and we also have folks joining us virtually. So let me take a sec. For the folks that are joining us virtually, we had a little bit of a technology snafu. So Robinson, you can see him in Nashville on your screen, but he's actually on the speakerphone here. So for whatever reason, Google Hangouts on air isn't allowing his voice to come through, and it may be the hookup we have here at the University of Connecticut. I messed around with the speakers, but there's nobody from UConn here to help me through the technology. So he's on the speakerphone, and he's on Google Hangouts. It's recording. We may have some product at the end of this. We may not have any product at all, other than what we remember. So and what we jot down. So let's welcome Robinson. He is Robinson Hunt from the Mentor. He's the Mentor Program Director at the Nashville Entrepreneur Center. And so just as a preamble, our focus today is to talk about matching mentors and mentees. And so understand that this is our MVP of this format. Robinson, you're a willing guinea pig, so I appreciate that. This group, just so you understand a little context of the group, we are a consortium of organizations that have entrepreneur-facing mentor programs. So we're a variety from the university side, from various accelerators and incubators, and we've joined together to create common standards and also to begin sharing in a variety of other ways, including as needed, sort of on a discrete basis, possibly even cross-network introductions of entrepreneurs and mentors, as generally with specific sort of industry connection opportunities. And so part of what we're doing, we've kind of spent the last year focusing on building our infrastructure, agreeing to standards and so on, and now we're kind of going to a sort of a new format, which is to really talk about specific issues that that would improve the efficacy of our programs. And so not only, Robinson, would I love your feedback after this, but everybody with us today, I'd love your feedback in terms of how this worked. My guess is we'll look at other technology solutions, which is fine. That feedback is totally expected. But so we're going to do a couple of things in this format. So we definitely want to get to your questions, but I thought it would be helpful to go through sort of some set information first. One is we want to learn a little bit more about the Nashville Entrepreneur Center, and Robinson, if you could share with us about that. We'll also, I've got sort of some pre-scripted questions to get things going in terms of talking about mentor and mentee matching, and then we'll open it up. And I want to make sure that I should say that the folks who are joining us via Google Hangout, unfortunately, in this tool, you'll need to submit your questions via the text question submission. Again, we may go to another tool that allows you to sort of voice share, or another option would be you can call into the Join Me line, which Robinson's on, and share your questions audibly on that. So that may be what we end up with. And I've shared in the group chat, I've shared the conference call dial-in info. So that might be the easier way to do that. If you have questions, just dial into the conference line. So with that, Robinson, I've been to the Nashville Entrepreneur Center. It's phenomenal. I was there when Michael Bertram was running it. I think it was before you were in your role. But can you talk us through a little bit of your program? I know you have co-working. You've got a very vibrant accelerator that's well respected around the country. But can you walk us through sort of the four walls of what fits into the Nashville Entrepreneur Center?
Absolutely. So we started in 2007, which is a fancy term for we had nowhere to call home. We were between that and the Nashville Chamber of Commerce. Michael Bertram was our original founder. In 2009, we moved into a temporary space on Broadway, so right in the mix downtown. And then in 2010, we built out our current space, which is a 20,000 square foot trolley barn. It's actually a trolley barn campus, and we filled it with like-minded individuals. Michael Bertram went and got a repurposing grant from the state of Tennessee, which turned out to be the largest repurposing grant in the history of Tennessee. So we reformed about 6 trolley barns up here. They all have startup-minded businesses operating within them, and if I could show you, we are literally 20 steps from downtown Nashville, Broadway, so right in the mix of everything. It's great. So the amenities that we offer to our members are we have meeting rooms, co-working space, internet, printing, coffee, 3D printing, a robust offering, and a variety of topics from a variety of angles. But we also offer desk space, mailboxes, lockers, and obviously the Entrepreneur Advisor Program. So the advisor program itself, or really the EC's mission itself, is to connect entrepreneurs to the critical resources to create, launch, and grow. So we'll come back to that, I'm sure, at some point, the create, launch, and grow aspect. But an overview of our programs, so we have programs that are identified for each one of those create, launch, and grow sectors. They're about 14 to 16 weeks, depending on the program. The ones in the launch and growth sectors are investment for a small amount of equity. We pass 3% of that equity on to the advisor pool that ends up working with that team long term, so they can divide it up any way they want. We typically have about 180 applications per accelerator. Our last one we ran, we had 25% that came from outside of the United States, and we accepted teams as far away as Zimbabwe, Ukraine, even Nashville. So we dealt with visas, housing, cultural submersion, pretty much all aspects of getting these guys here, and then put them through 16 weeks of what we call controlled chaos. So like I said, we have several accelerators catered to different industries and stages of businesses. First, I'll tell you about our main meat on the bone accelerators, which is the Project Music, 1440, Tech Accelerator, and Project Health. Project is the first tech accelerator dedicated to the music industry, and we just finished our second cohort. Very fascinating companies coming out of that. They can do everything from artist management to workflow, productivity, all the way to metadata, which is a $300 billion problem. So there's a lot of things in the music industry to innovate, and it's great having Nashville as the drop for that kind of an accelerator. 1440 was our publishing technology accelerator. We partnered with the Ingram Content Group, which is obviously a very large publishing firm here in Nashville. So that went really, really well. We just wrapped up the first round of those, so that was a different and interesting experience for us. And then moving on, we are doing our first Project Healthcare Accelerator and FinTech Accelerator in the fall. Previously in the past, we partnered with a group called Jumpstart Foundry, which ran that accelerator out of our state. But they have moved there a little bit downstream. It's a little bit less risky. So we came in and we're going to fill that void, and we're really, really excited to utilize Nashville in that aspect as well. Same thing with FinTech. That'll be our first time running that accelerator as well in the fall. So we'll have 4 accelerators running all times of the year. But we have identified programs to go on the front and the back end of those, so pre and post accelerators. Our most popular pre-accelerator is called Pre-Flight. I call it the Don't Quit Your Day Job Accelerator. It's on Mondays from 5:30 to 7, so you can keep your Monday through Friday 9-to-5 job. And basically, the end of that accelerator, you'll have all the definition around your business, either to move into a full-fledged accelerator or to realize that your idea probably should be shelved because it was going to more than likely fail, which is also successful because it helps you save some stress, some money, and some wear on your family. And then some of our post-accelerators that we identify for alumni are more or less are centered around offering them a lot of resources. So as they move forward outside of our building, building their business, we can continue to support them. Is really the goal there. So some of those resources include a class called Founders Therapy, where we literally locked them in the room with a founder of a very successful startup. The last person was Mark Harris of NextGXDX. And they will literally just table all their fears. Everything from having employee problems to running out of runway, things like that, and they can just talk through it there. We also offer them a national investor database and some other amenities, kind of as a token for doing their monthly reporting to the board to help them understand where the hell are going forward. We have a lot of strategic partners, over 50, and from them we expect a financial, donation, but also resources. So we're able to offer over 50 different types of resources to our entrepreneurs at a discounted rate, whether it's legal, accounting, tech development, things like that. So we've we've really, not me, thankfully, but we've really done a great job of using Nashville as a network and expanding ourselves throughout the city as the vocal point for entrepreneurship.
That's really cool. And one of the things that really impressed me, besides the facility itself, which is impressive, they're seeing these sort of old trolley barns where they are is really cool, and the way it's laid out. But is how integrated you are, as you said. And I think one of the things that Michael Bertram, the founder who put this all together, did was he first started with the investment community and essentially built the model working backwards on what they need. And as ventures exit your good care, they essentially have a portfolio that they can take forward to gain investment, and it's a really wonderful system. So let's hop into because we're obviously on limited time and we want to be sensitive to your time. I'd like to hop into the mentor-mentee matching conversation. And so, one of the things as I think about this topic is, there are certainly organizations that are concerned with creating personality profiles and doing meetups and all sorts of different techniques for connecting, making the right matches. There's some that use software, some that don't. But when you're, sort of how does your process work when someone comes on? Because I know you have mentors who are but you also have a sort of an independent mentor program. I can come in off the street and have a mentor meeting. So how does that all work, and how do I get matched up?
Right, so we embarked on a pretty big journey about a year and a half ago to revamp the whole program. And back to the partnership discussion, we were fortunate enough that we were one of the 9 Google Tech Hubs in North America. So we were able to kind of bounce around and talk to our other tech hub partners and kind of see what their best practices are, the problems that they've been facing with the mentor programs in their areas. And we really got a good basis for what everyone was trying to do. And in that, we realized there's a lot that is centered around setting expectations. And for that reason, we revamped the terms around what we call the Entrepreneurial Advisor Program. The reason it's advisor and not mentor is because there's 3 subcategories within there that we use to designate individuals. We have mentors, who are the people who are doing it, done it, invested in it. So startup or corporate experience is a necessity to be in that category. You understand how to get it done, and those are the people that entrepreneurs seek out the most. Then we have service providers, who are your individuals that literally, just like it sounds, they provide a specialized service, whether it's legal, accounting, tech development, and that comes back to our partners who offer specialized services with discounted rates. And then the third category is what we call program experts. So we identify for particular programs. So project we were talking about earlier, music industry works very, very different than your average business would. So having the ability to bring in a lot of high caliber music industry folks into the room so you can meet with them, understand what they do, how the industry really works, and also utilize them to open some doors for you. It really, really breaks down the timeline for these teams in terms of their growth. So those are the 3 categories. Those program experts are accelerators. We do have some people that are mentors and program experts. But even more importantly, one thing that we did is we identified 8 individuals that we call the master mentors. And those are the people that we utilize for any massive changes that we're going to make to the program, and we lean on them. We also lean on them in the advisor onboarding process, because they've done it the most, borderline thousands of hours at some point, but they also have the most experience outside of the EC. So they understand what it takes to be a good mentor and what it takes to be a good fit as a mentor at the EC. And therefore, by utilizing them in the interview process, we're able to weed out the people that might not be the best fit, and we can continue to have our standard in our program set at a very high bar. So that's how we kind of control the quality control on our mentor side, our advisor side, excuse me. But in terms of the matching process, one of the things that we do when advisors come on board is we have them fill out what we call the master data intake form. That data intake form covers an amazing amount of content, everything from their contact information to their biographical information that we'll put on the website, to how many languages they can speak fluently, whether they would like to be a virtual mentor, teaching topics that they would like to cover if they want to do an event ever. That way we can kind of pull from that database for our events, but also obviously the top industries and skills. But the real meat of it is relevant experience. And what we've done is we identified 5 separate areas: corporate leadership, operations and administration, sales and marketing, technology, and finance and legal. And we asked them to boil down in very easy, simple point text boxes what they feel comfortable mentoring on in each one of those categories. So for the role and experience in each one of those they can either be a board member, a C-suite, a manager, a VP, or an advisor in each one of those areas. But the experiences vary depending on the area. So corporate leadership, have you developed a culture in an organization? Have you established a vision? Have you ever managed a board? Have you negotiated partner deals? Have you ever recruited a team? Have you ever sold the company or transitioned management to a new CEO? So each one of those has their own different designations that the mentor can kind of pick and choose from, saying, you know, I've done that, I have a lot of experience on that, and I would feel comfortable mentoring someone on that. And that way we know what everyone is capable of doing in their own terms. So flip side, we leverage that data, but also against the entrepreneur's data. So every time an entrepreneur wants to have a meeting with a mentor, they fill out a form. So that form is similar, but it takes their contact information, we verify their membership, we get the name of their company, what their role is in the company, their professional background, a brief overview of the company. We want to know what stage they're in, whether they're for-profit or non-profit, what their target customer is, how many customer interviews they've done, market industry, any advisors that they already have so we know who they're listening to, what their projected year 3 revenue is, also whether they're raising capital, and then finally what they're looking for help with and what they're expecting in this 1-hour meeting in specific. So that's the form that they will fill out the first time that they come in, and from then on, all they have to tell us is what they want out of that 1-hour meeting, if nothing else has changed in their business. So out of those things I listed, there are certain things that we hit on more. Obviously, the brief overview of the company, the for-profit, the non-profit, the stage, the industry target, and then what they're looking for help with is really what we use in terms of applying them with a mentor. Some of the things that we utilize for more of the, the more of the undiscovered type is what role they think that they're going to hold in the company and their professional background, because that can tell you a lot about the type of person that you're about to interact with, but also whether they have any current advisors and what they expect their revenue to be. So you can kind of understand how experienced the person is, how realistic their expectations are. But the one problem that we've really encountered with this is sometimes people's expectations, even for themselves, aren't realistic at all. If I had $1 for every time someone came in, their first meeting, they said, we're looking for an investment, and that wasn't actually what they needed at the time, I'd be a very, very rich person. It's just the way it goes. So being able to leverage those 2 pieces, those 2 databases together really has made our meeting a lot better. Also, when we do that, we look at other things after the meeting. So every meeting comes with meeting notes, obviously. And the whole back page of meeting notes is a review of that entrepreneur, but also their recommendations for their next meeting. Whether they need to go meet with someone in business modeling or some help in competitive analysis or legal, or whether they need to be returned to that advisor. After every advisor meeting, they're supposed to give them 3 to 5 deliverables because their head's spinning. They have so many things going on. So if you walk them out the door with 3 to 5 deliverables, it helps them get something that they can move forward with. And it also comes with a due date. So being able to look at that along with the recommendations, but also look at the review of the entrepreneur, where they answer questions like, did the entrepreneur listen? Did they accept feedback well? Have they done competitive analysis? Were they on time? We can get a really good feel for, after that, who's the next best step from there. And by utilizing all of that, we can also look at the personality traits and characteristics. That's not something that we quantify on a data level, but that's more or less something that we get by being in the weeds with the mentors, going to the meetings, understanding each individual mentor's style, and knowing really how entrepreneurs are once we meet them for the first time. So if someone doesn't take feedback very well or they're very soft, we're probably not going to put them with one of our mentors that's very, very hard, very blunt, because they'll crumble like a cookie. And that's not what we want. It's not beneficial for either side.
So you've actually anticipated our topic next month, which is going to be measuring results. But so we've got a good outline of sort of how you profile mentors, mentees. But how does the match actually happen? Is that a concierge or human process, or is it automated in any way?
So right now it is a human process, but we are moving away from that. in the next 6 to 12 months. So right now, it is literally me reading the forum, understanding my mentor pool, and then going in and making sure that the matches are, as close to physically possible as they can be. Availability does play a role in it, but it's probably less than 5% role in the whole overall match decision. If someone's not a right fit, regardless of whether they're in tomorrow or not, we're not going to put them with them. That's just how it goes. It's a lot easier in the accelerator programs because we do a lot of events where they can meet each other, and that kind of takes care of the actual matching process. But in most cases right now, people are just requesting general advice. They're not requesting a specific person. So when I said I was moving away from that, what we're doing is we're developing a very, very robust advisor portal. And in that, we have this big directory that we already have built the member side of it. And they'll be able to go into that directory and specifically request to meet with an advisor straight off of their profile. And when they request that, it'll ask them, what do you want in this 1 hour meeting? And then it'll pull the rest of the information off of their own already preloaded profile in their actual database for that specific platform. It'll pass that information along to the mentor, who will then be able to use his own knowledge to say, this is something I can help this person with, or this is not falling into my wheelhouse, they need to go meet with someone else. And if they say yes, then they'll be able to schedule the meeting right there, then and there. No emails involved, all within our own database. But if they say no, it'll forward that request back to me for a recommendation. So that's the method we're using going forward to try and broaden our bandwidth in this program. And to give you some perspective, in terms of bandwidth, we had the Project Music and the 1440 accelerators going on beginning this year. And in the month of February, we did about 650 meetings.
Wow.
Yeah,
wow,
so we really needed something where we could kind of break down that scale and get everyone so they can make their own schedule. So through that portal, they'll even be able to log their own availability, say, hey, these are the weeks I'm going to be available, and we'll be able to aggregate that and pass it on to the entire member community for them to sift through each week and fill unbooked meetings. That way they can understand, hey, this person's in tomorrow. I could use that. I should probably go meet with them.
So I know we're starting to get some questions from the room. I could read. I could read them on. So other questions that come in terms of, again, our focus is mentor matching, and certainly if it sounds like a few folks have chimed in on the phone, feel free to speak up as well. But what questions exist in terms of how do we match these folks well? And please introduce yourself. So
I'm at Connecticut State University. I've actually visited the center down in Nashville 4 years ago or something like that. You've got some critical mass now, a lot of publicity. Do you know when you started this, how did you first find the first 10, the first 20, the first 50 mentors that came in?
Right. So luckily, Michael has a wealth of contacts. As if any of you know him, he really, really is. So the first advisor, his name is David First. He is a professor down at Vanderbilt for the Owen Graduate School of Business, but also in the undergrad section as well. He literally built their entrepreneurship program at Vanderbilt from scratch and still teaches it today. So Michael took him to Italy and begged him to be the first mentor and build out the mentor pool. And he said, yes, I'll do it, just for you. And he's still mentoring today, every Tuesday for mine as well. And from there, it kind of just snowballed. He asked a person, then more people came along. Our third mentor in the whole program, it was amazing. He had actually heard about it and been told to go down there that early on, that he was the third mentor, and he had heard about it. And didn't know David, didn't know anyone else, just heard about it. But from then on, it literally snowballed to the point where now we do absolutely no outreach to gain new mentors. My first mentor training, we had over 90 applications, and we took 31 of them. Since we're such a data-heavy program, and we know all of those things about our advisors, we're able every time we do onboarding every 4 quarters, quarterly each year, and we're able to aggregate all of that data so we can see exactly how many people we have with legal expertise, exactly how many people we have with business modeling experience on each one of those categories. And that way we can pass that on to our master mentors so we can know, A, where we're light, where we're heavy, but also where can pass future needs, also measure entrepreneurs in terms of what they're looking for more help with. So right now we're in the same process. We end that next week, and particularly in this one, we're looking for people with SEO experience, search engine optimization. And we got all that from our data. We'll probably take no more than 10 for this particular orientation. And the things that we look for are qualification, availability, and fit. You can be qualified, but if there's not a fit, then it's not going to do either one of us justice to onboard them. And we're very, very open with that up front, going back to setting expectations so people really understand. But we really built out that onboarding process so it's very, very rigorous. Number one, to put a couple of gates up so people only get in if they really, really want to be in, but also to weed out we had a group of interviews last week, for instance. We're going in on paper. We really liked the first interview, and we didn't really think the second one was going to be a great fit, and we left with the exact opposite mentality, thinking there was no way the first one was going to work, but the second one was great. And it was just a true testament to the way the process is working. So we go through a paper application, then we go to a master mentor interview, which is 30 minutes long. And the point of that interview isn't really to, we hear their qualifications and things like that, but we already know. So it's more gauging the actual interaction, how comfortable they are, whether they have the real mentoring personality. And then from there, they go to the orientation, which is where we really walk them through the processes, help them understand where the entrepreneurs are coming from, do some mentoring one-on-one, 101 type things. But then we also bring in a group of the master mentors so they can ask them questions. We do what would you do if section, because obviously I'm sure you guys know some crazy things can happen in mentor meetings. And then from there, they go into a shadowing phase. So they'll shadow the master mentors in the real live sessions for 4 to 8 hours. We say shadowing, but they're participating. They won't get away with just sitting in there being quiet the whole time. So it's really like they're mentoring, they just have someone else with them. And that way it kind of brings them into the environment. They get a lot more comfortable in terms of what it's supposed to do, but also they see a different variety of people and different tactics, because everyone has a different way about doing it. And that process has just done wonders for us in terms of quality control and getting the right people in the building.
So that was really good. Are there other questions? Yeah, that's answered. If you have others. Yeah, go ahead, Joe. And introduce yourself, please.
Yeah, Joe Bader, lifelong entrepreneur, mentor, etc. So a couple of questions, and I apologize, I'm from Connecticut, so I'm geographically challenged. Could you tell me about, in Tennessee, here in Connecticut, we're pretty densely populated. Traffic getting from one place to another is a challenge. So we end up with sort of multiple locations throughout the state that offer entrepreneurship programs, mentoring programs, etc. So not that they're necessarily competitive, they're complementary, but they don't seem to integrate as much as they could benefit from each other. And I'm wondering, in Nashville, Tennessee, your demographics, do you think, both, physical distance and, the population, the resources, et cetera, does that give you a leg up, or is it a challenge, and how do you overcome that?
It has not been that big a challenge. We're a big believer in the term competition. So we've actually launched a couple of workspaces out of our accelerators. And we're in the process of doing a big study with the chamber down here to identify all of the resources for entrepreneurs in the entire Southeast. That way we can kind of be a little bit of a connector in terms. So our ecosystem is building out. I don't know how much you guys know about Nashville. I've obviously been here, born and raised my entire life. The last 2 years, Nashville has been in the top 2 in the country in construction permits. We had about $2.8 billion worth of this year. From here, I can see about 16 cranes on the skyline. So it's absolutely exploding. But to answer your question, our ecosystem is pretty underdeveloped compared to some. We're slowly starting to get some of the technology coming back from the Silicon Valley after, it's kind of, I say the bubble has kind of popped over there just because costs and everything rose and barriers kind of broke down. People are starting to spread out. But we're really starting to realize how many different organizations are doing things like we are doing. And we're trying to do our best to work with them all, because we don't believe that it benefits us to try and cut anyone's legs out from underneath them. So we talked about Jumpstart Foundry earlier as a healthcare accelerator. They ran out of our building. Since then, they've moved out and created their own space. still do the same thing, just a different model. We also work with Social which is a nonprofit accelerator, and they're in our building as well, totally separate entity. But we also work with other groups like Periscope, Scale Up, different organizations where we might supply education, but they run the rest of their program. So we try and do our best to grow entrepreneurship as a whole, and our overall goal is to make Nashville the best place for entrepreneurship in the country. So it's not to make the Nashville Entrepreneur Center the best place for entrepreneurship in the country, but Nashville. So that's the way we really view it. Tactically, we try to identify everyone we can that's in the area, that's doing what we're doing, and see how we can benefit them, how we can add value. So we do a lot of stuff at South by Southwest. We're working with Cambia Grove in Seattle with some healthcare things. There's just different organizations. Obviously, the Google Tech Hubs are really great. We're part of the GFE network, which is Google for Entrepreneurs. So our companies will go to California, pitch at their Google Demo Day, things like that. Really, partnerships is what drives this at the end of the day. And it's made a world of a difference. Partnerships with different organizations and things like that. But the industry down here in terms of entrepreneurship is definitely on the catch-up, not on the head of the curve, I'll put it that way. Does that answer your question, I hope?
Nope. Maybe switching back, so we're talking about actual matching of mentors and mentees. What happens when you have a bad match? How do you handle that?
So number one, we'll try and bring the individual in, the entrepreneur. We have one of the parts of the meeting form is we ask the mentor, do you think that your expertise matched what this individual was looking for? So we can utilize that. We also have quality of meeting scales for that. But also after every meeting, the entrepreneur will fill out a very, very short survey grading the meeting. And if we ever get a bad survey result, we immediately reach out to that person and ask for either a phone call or we have to resolve it over email, which is not as fun. Usually we try and bring them in and schedule them with another advisor that will fit more, really make the effort to understand exactly what they're trying to do, exactly what they need if we miss the boat on the first one. I will say, go for it.
I was just going to ask, now you said you survey the entrepreneur in terms of their mentor. Do you also survey the mentor in terms of their view of the entrepreneur in terms of their preparation and all that?
Yes, sir. That is all wrapped in. Somehow we managed to wrap the whole thing in a piece of paper front and back. So the front of it's more contact information and a description of the meeting, which is more for the advisor so he can remember going down the road, what happened, who I was meeting with. And then you have the homework page. We have a SWOT analysis on the front too, and that's more organically if you want to fill it out. We tell them, don't sit there and ask what their strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats are. Just as you hear them, you can jot it down. The due date, the quality of the meeting, and on the back is the recommendations. So the recommendations fall into particular different categories like we were talking about earlier. Do you need help with business modeling, things like that? Then we have program recommendations below that if they're qualified for the program. So if you met with someone that just screams, I am a great project music candidate, you can mark that on there, and then we'll bring them in and ask them about it and talk to them about the program and see if it's something they're interested in. But then going down, the rest of the page is all questions about the entrepreneur. Were they prepared? Were they on time? Did they listen adequately? How did they accept your feedback? All of those quality measurements that we utilize to make sure that, number one, because if they're not listening, if they're not taking your feedback seriously or anything like that, then there's not a whole lot we can do. You can take a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. And we've had that happen. But really the whole goal is to make sure that they are satisfied at the end of the day, in terms of the entrepreneurs with the meeting that they had, and they have a sense of direction going forward, but also that the advisor feels as though they were as impactful as possible within that hour in their time given.
Absolutely.
Do you fire entrepreneurs? They come and schedule X number of meetings, and every one of the advisors said, sounds like they weren't prepared, it sounds like they didn't listen, they're wasting my time. You stop scheduling those folks, and you sit them down and give them a little counseling, like, you want to keep playing, you gotta do your homework.
What's the remediation?
Exactly. So that's literally, we will never fire an entrepreneur unless things just get absolutely awful. And I've never had that situation. Typically, people that are utilizing the program on a consistent basis understand the value and understand how to utilize it. So with that said, those people that don't understand, we'll just have a conversation with them. And I should have prefaced this, but we do have a quality control class, which is called Entrepreneurship Orientation. That's the first step to meet with an advisor. You can't meet with an advisor without going to that class. But you also don't have to be a member. So we let one advisor meeting free before they have to sign up for a membership. That's just kind of the confidence we have in the program, allowing them to test drive that car before they have to buy it. So in that, we really walk them through the do's and don'ts of the advisor meeting, all the way down to in the thank you note to your advisor, the email or written, just so you can show them that you appreciate their time and are going a long way for them. We also walk them through the business model canvas so they can understand the basic questions, or really through the basic questions that if they don't answer, it rates the first meeting. So if you don't know who your target customer is, then the first meeting is going to be about your target customer. So by being able to knock those down, we can kind of get more in the weeds in the first meeting. But also we walk them through the elevator pitch so they learn how to really articulate their business to the advisor so they're not wasting 30 minutes trying to tell them what they're doing. So that's kind of our quality control. It solves a lot of our headaches. But on the back end, if someone is a little bit, less friendly than we would like them to be, we will sit them down, have a conversation with them. We'll say, look, guys, we want to see you be successful. That's what this whole thing's about. These advisors brought this feedback across. We think that it would be more beneficial for you and us if you would just follow these simple protocols before a meeting. And if they can't seem to get that across, then we'll tell them you can't schedule another meeting until you can handle that. To give you an example of that, we had an individual who did not do his homework for about 3 separate advisor meetings, and all the homework was exactly the same. Even worse, he would go into the advisor meeting like the previous one had never happened. So they would literally, because it would be a different advisor, and he would go through it, talk about the same thing, the advisor would give him the same feedback, and he would act like he had never even heard it before. And the feedback was do some customer discovery. He hadn't talked to a single customer. It was a product-based business, and he hadn't even talked to the people he was planning on selling it to. And he was so far down the pike that he was out of runway and dipping into things that he did not need to dip into in terms of finance. And it was getting to the point where the sand was almost out of the clock. And someone needed to tell him to do something. So we basically told him, final advisor meeting, the advisor literally did something that he told him typically not to do, which is do the work for the entrepreneur. He literally wrote out a list of questions for cold calls, identified different areas or different individuals he needed to cold call, and even offered to sit in on cold calls with him. And the individual still didn't do it. So at that point, we had to say, it's not beneficial for you or them to continue going through this process. And that's really the biggest part of this advisor portal that's coming up, is the ability for our advisors to access via data past meeting notes for each individual entrepreneur, which is a big deal. So that way, if they're meeting with someone they've never met with before, they can see every meeting note they've ever had at the EC, what the feedback was, whether they were good, bad, in terms of actual individual in the meeting room, and also what their homework was so they can follow up on that. And they can also kind of see through the eyes of another advisor what they saw in this particular individual.
So we have a couple other questions, Robinson. That was really good. Eric, and you introduce yourself, please.
Absolutely. Serial entrepreneur and entrepreneur residence, a resource in the Hartford area. First off, just thank you for making the time this morning. This is valuable, and really appreciate your time today. Quick question, just circling back to the kind of this one-page, two-sided grading form that you have, and given the scope of your programs and the number of participants, what are the logistics? Somebody fills this out, somebody gets a poor rating on a particular scale. Where does that paper go, and how does that rating get to someone who says, oh, gotta call a timeout, let's call the person reviewing back in? Just trying to understand the process there, because it seems like there's a lot of papers. How do they surface to the appropriate party?
So the funny thing about is mentors have awful handwriting. That's the hardest part by far. So the easy part about it is we review our notes daily. Some advisors, you're going to be like, who will submit notes daily? No, and that's the hard part, is keeping track of who has submitted their notes and who has not. So the new portal is going to take care of that, because it's going to have a system that tracks them. It's going to buzz them at 2 days and then send them an email notification at 7 saying, you got to get these things in. But also we're going to enter in incentives for them to do so, which is going to help, and they'll really see the value in doing so that'll help too with actually getting to do it. But right now we review each advisor's notes daily as soon as we get them. That way it's fresh in our mind. We know where this individual is. We kind of have them on the hook, and that way we can really be quick with our feedback in terms of getting it back to the advisor. So the paper issue right now.
Compliant? I'm sorry, what percent of your advisors are currently compliant, and what percent of the entrepreneurs are compliant with submitting the paperwork?
So typically we're about 90% compliant with our notes. The hard part is written versus web submission. We prefer web submission. We use JotForm, which is the greatest form building website I've ever experienced, mainly because it lets you do conditionalized questions, which is really, really nice, very user friendly. So they can go online, submit all of their notes online, and then we input those notes very easily right now into the Salesforce CRM, which manages all of the accounts and contacts for the entire advisor program currently. That's the hard part, is we have to input them. So when it's digital, it's a lot easier, copy, paste, you're done. When it's not digital, that's hard, because then I'm trying to figure out if that's a the or if it's a for, you know, that's the difficult part. So right now we have a lot of little things around the program, like the notes, that are dependent on manpower. And that's where, you know, long nights kind of come in. But moving forward, we're freeing up so much time around that the goal is to really get in the weeds with the entrepreneurs, meet more with entrepreneurs one-on-one, understand their needs more, and really meet more one-on-one with the advisors. We do a tremendous amount of it already, but being on the present, I believe, is going to be the most valuable aspect of that portal. So yeah, to answer your question, right now they're going to the CRM. We have not gotten the functionality right now to pass those notes directly back on to the advisor in the format that they submit it. But like I said, that is the goal of the advisor that we're going to roll out in the next 12 months.
That's awesome. And Joel, do you want to introduce yourself? You had a question as well?
Yeah, my name is Joel Hartstone, and I run a small accelerator for a Hartford-based law firm.
Oh, wow, cool.
First of all, let me congratulate you. You sound like you've got just fabulous infrastructure for only 8 years. You've really created an equilibrium that sounds very, very effective.
Thank you.
My question is, you said earlier that you are trying to change that infrastructure a little bit and remove yourself as an individual or human individual from the initial process of matching everybody up so that they can match themselves up. My question is that you sound to me, listening to you for 20 minutes, to be a fabulous facilitator mediator. And somebody who really can identify not what people are saying as positions, but what their real needs and interests are and match them together. Aren't you worried that if you remove that step from the equilibrium by having people match themselves up more or less through an electronic system, that the facilitation element that you are now adding gets removed and you break your equilibrium at a point where that changes the whole dynamic and the success probability?
So what do you think about that, Robinson?
Great question. We definitely don't want to break the space-time continuum there. So yes and no. So we are changing a lot of the process to get me out of it, but a lot of the processes we're changing or things that are more monotonous, like the things like that. We are still going to have the same system accessible in terms of entrepreneurs can submit requests, general mentor requests, and ask us to match them up. The goal with freeing up that time is to go spend more time one-on-one with entrepreneurs as they come in. My goal for the program in terms of my perfect relationship with an entrepreneur is what I deem as engaged, which is 5 or more meetings in a month span. So we want to be more active with our current member base versus going and adding new members and things like that, if that makes sense. And to answer your question even further, that initial submission I was telling you guys about, where I highlighted, what are you looking for help with? Initially, very rarely is that 100% accurate the first time. So by being able to get in there, interact with an individual, you can really boil down and decipher everything you're going through and find their exact need right at that moment. You guys know entrepreneurship is hard. There's about 30 to 40 things going on at once that you're worried about. But you got to identify there's 3 to 5 that are important right now. And that's really where we want to come in and help by freeing that time up. So the process of matching those, the idea behind that is we can control that by doing very, very strong and good education of our advisors by telling them it's not a bad thing for you to deny a match. It's a bad thing for you to accept it if you can't help them. And that's going to be a big part of it. But the goal of this is to really cater more towards our program experts. They know the advisors that are in their pool. They literally meet with them on our program 16 weeks. Every single Wednesday night, the entire mentor pool will show up and the entire accelerator pool will show up, and they will just mingle for the first 3 weeks of those for 3 hours. After that, it'll boil into a group of about 12. That group will go to 8. Then it will go to 6 over the increments of the next 8 weeks in that, or 12 weeks. And at that point, the 6 are awarded equity. So that model works really well because they know who they're talking to, because they've met them in person. So that's part of what we're going to be working to roll into this new platform, is more one-on-one interactions where we can get a large member base present, but also a large group of the advisor base present. And they can have one-on-one interactions almost in a networking type of atmosphere, but without that concept in mind. Every time we have an event currently, we have very good attendance in terms of we don't have people that are hawking their services and things like that there. It's the right people. It's the good advisors, which there aren't any bad ones, and it's the good entrepreneurs that are there, and they want to meet each other. And that's one of the things we push, is by being able to make a bigger network and knowing each other, then Joe can say that so-and-so needs to go meet with Sam because he knows what Sam does. And so that's our big goal, is having everyone really know each other so they can make a bigger referral network from that. And that way, when they go online, I don't have to be in the middle going back and forth to get a time that works for both parties. They can do so amongst each other. Without your contact information, someone's going to be calling someone late at night, all through the masking of our portal. So that's really the goal. It's not to have, unwarranted matches just running around, things like that. The good thing about our member platform is by having those 3 buckets, create, launch, and grow, we're able to control the amenities that each one has access to. So launch only has 2 meetings a month and grow has unlimited, whereas create's more of a community membership type deal. And the concept behind that is they are able to only access certain people. So people that are in an accelerator, like I said earlier, access those program experts, but no one else can. And we're able to shut that off all through member functionality in our platform. Right. So we're going to be watching it very closely.
So you have stage gates essentially that qualify people for the different levels and allow them access to a variety of resources based on that level.
Yes, sir. But basically what I'm trying to get to at the end here is we don't know what's going to happen until we get out there, but we have a pretty good idea of where we're aiming to go, and we think that we can really make it happen, and it's going to be good. But also, we've weighed all this with our master mentors, with people that have been doing this since we started, and this is the feedback we received from them, and we've also done a lot of discovery with our entrepreneurs. We weren't going to do something this big without practicing what we preach with our own methods.
Sure. Let me pause for a second. We do probably have a few folks who are on the phone with us, and I want to make sure we don't exclude them. Is there anyone on the phone that would like to ask a question? Ask a question. You may have us. We can't hear you, so we're on mute. So take us off mute if you're asking something. Okay. Well, assume there are no questions. Are there any other questions from the room? We're going to got about maybe 2 or 3 minutes for an additional question, and then we need to move on. Joe Weir.
I have a question. What kind of interaction with the state? Do they supply finances? What kind of support do you get from them? Is it helpful? Have they followed through? I'm interested in that.
That's a great question. We love working with the state. It's one of the most fun aspects of this job, which is something that you don't really get to hear a whole lot. Our work primarily is with the Nashville Chamber of Commerce, but to give you a brief, little window into that, we did a thing called Ideas to Reality, which was a 16-week program. We worked with the heads of the departments of each of the government agencies, so like Metro Water, Metro Transit, and they literally brought in their biggest problems for their specific sectors, and we helped them to think in a more innovative way. And we presented those solutions to Mayor Megan Barry at the EC, where she held her budget hearings for 7 days inside of our big learning center. And number one, that was great for us to work with them. It's great for us to have an impact with the city, but it was also great, obviously, for the publicity and to get our voice out there and more heard. And they're pushing entrepreneurship very, very hard in Nashville. Obviously, we're growing at a very rapid rate, And so businesses are booming, they're popping up left and right, and we love participating in that. We also do a program with Metro Public Schools, basically the same model, but with teachers, helping them to think in a more innovative way, which is something that they haven't really been educated on in the past. And we do another one, Best, program for prisoners, where we go literally into prisons and we interact with prisoners for 16 weeks, teach them all about entrepreneurship, help them develop a business model for an idea that they love, with the hopes that they will come out of prison and develop that idea into a fully functioning business and leave whatever life behind that they had before. So to answer your question, technically we're a public and private partnership on paper, which is very fancy. We work a lot with this funding for the things that we do, interacting with the different departments and things like that. But outside of that, they really just help us as a microphone to the rest of the Southeast, saying, we're here, we're helping to develop businesses. We want to really boost the ecosystem. And they've done a great job of supporting entrepreneurship in Nashville.
Very cool. So shifting again back to sort of mentor matching, and we're really close to the end here. And I'd love you if you had sort of one thing you want to leave us with in terms of a best practice from a standpoint of making sure that the matches are as successful as they can be. Is there one sort of major takeaway you want to make sure you leave us with?
Yeah, there's a lot of technology in today, and I was thinking about this before we got on the call, and I just wanted to take a second and say how cool it is that we do what we do. It shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone that entrepreneurship is kind of on a decline right now. Statistically, there's never been a time in history where more new businesses are failing and more established businesses are closing than right now, which is pretty alarming. To the extent that now more businesses are actually closing than there are ones that are opening. That's never actually happened in American history. And it's been going on, the trend, if you look at the chart, since 2008 when we had that big recession. So people always ask me, well, why don't we feel it? And I tell them it's a ripple effect. I believe that we're going to feel it 10 to 20 years down the road. So as a society, we've had a staggering amount of innovation in the last decade. The introduction into technology has just brought a sea of opportunities and undiscovered territories to the hands of entrepreneurs. But regardless of how great an idea is or how smart a person is, there is just so many fallout points along the timeline of creating a business where people can fail. Not because they are not smart or they're not good at what they're doing, but they just don't have the experience. And I really believe our duty is providing quality advisors. Our duty as providing quality advisors shouldn't be overlooked as a part of the solution to this problem that we're experiencing right now. So we're in a very unique position. We're not teachers, we're not coaches, we're not parents, we're not therapists. We're kind of a mix of all of them in the form of an advisor, but people are coming to us and trusting our advice and saying, hey, borderline, my future's in your hands, what would you do? I just people undervalue what you're doing. Sometimes the parts may be difficult to quantify or see, but they're there. I had a guy that I had met with a ton, and I was thinking, I met with this guy like 30 times, and I don't think I've seen anything. He sent me an email one day and said, hey, I just want to pass a testimonial on to. After meeting with the advisors, 3 months down the road, doubled my revenue, and his revenue was already 6 figures. So just by implementing the education he had learned through the advisor program, I was able to really build it out. And I really believe the better we are, the better we can serve them, and then the better that they can be in the end. So with that said, my one takeaway with matching is really at the end of the day, what I ask myself at every match I ever do, regardless of what the data says and everything, is do I believe that this person is going to add value to this business in a substantial way that is going to be both sides? I want to make sure that we do everything we physically for our advisors to make their time here impactful as possible, but as easy as possible, so they can enjoy every second of it and look forward to it, while also making that an environment for the entrepreneurs where they really feel like they're on a fast track to build their business. And that's really what all of our matches boil down to. Entrepreneurs are difficult to work with, they're stressed, money's tight, everything like that. So it takes some patience. But at the end of the day, we really, really love it here, doing what we do. Everyone at the building will tell you the advisory program is probably one of our top offerings next to education. But without education, you can't have the advisory program. Without the advisory program, you can't have education. So that would be my really big takeaway, guys. It's just whatever you do, just add value at the end of the day. There's no perfect recipe or formula for it. I wish I had a great algorithm and show you guys that had the perfect match every time, but it doesn't exist. It's really just hard work and making sure that you're adding value at the end of the day.
That's cool. Well, thank you, Robinson. I'm going to just talk for a second about our next meeting, and then we'll come back and thank you more formally here. So our next meeting in July is July 12th. That's a Tuesday, and we're going to be at the New Cure, their new incubator down in New London. It's called the Commons. And for those that come, we're going to go. I'm sorry, Robinson, you can't, unless you want to fly up for this. We're going to go afterwards for those that want to join us to Abbott's, which is right on the seashore, and they serve wonderful lobster rolls and stuff like that. So again, Robinson, sorry to throw that out there, but our topic at that event is going to be tracking results. So actually, Robinson talked a little bit about what they're doing at the EC on that, but we'll have again some great subject matter experts that'll come in and give us some super ideas on how do we track our results and really what are we really aiming for when we track results well. So I'm sorry, Drew, did you have something?
Are you in a position where you could share some of the education forms and some of these forms you're talking about today? That would be helpful rather than us recreating a wheel.
Yeah, absolutely. I can forward that on the bill, and you can disperse it.
That'd be great. Thank you, Robinson. I really appreciate that. Yeah. Cool. Anything else before we close up? Well, yeah. Thank you. I think our team is really, really appreciative, and certainly anything that we can do to help you guys at all, please let us know. Again, we really appreciate your time and wisdom. You guys are very much a lighthouse for us, a waypoint. So we appreciate all that you've shared.
Well, thank you guys so much for having me. I hope it was beneficial. And I mean, you guys, what you're doing is great. I wish we had a network like this down here, because it would be fantastic to hear from some of the other people. But keep doing what you're doing, and let me know if I can ever be of any assistance. Like I said, you guys, what you're doing is fabulous. A great workspace. See it behind you. It looks cool.
Yeah, there it is. I wish I could share the view of the folks. We'll figure out the technology stuff. I know today was probably not ideal, and some are probably Disney going back and forth with the images. I apologize, but we'll catch up soon, Robinson. Certainly appreciate it. But thanks so much for taking the time today.
Absolutely. Have a great rest of your day, guys.
All right. Bye now.